With Sass now finally installed on your computer, let's put a piece of Sass in our CSS code and then compile it in a command line. Now the first thing that I want to do here is to create a folder where we can put our Sass files. So I do it here in the command line because, as I was saying, I really like to use it. So mkdir make directory and then just Sass. Alright, and now you see it's already here. Of course we could have done it here in our code editor as well, just like here hitting new folder. But again, I like to use the terminal for this kind of stuff. Then we can move in there and create our very first Sass file. And we do it by using the touch command and edit on Windows. And if edit doesn't work for that, then you can of course just do it in your code editor. So touch, and let's call it main and SCSS. Okay, so remember there are two syntaxes of Sass. The first is called Sass and the second one is SCSS. And if we want to write SCSS, which stands for Sassy CSS, we have to specify the file extension as being SCSS. Okay? So all of our Sass files will have this SCSS file extension. Okay? And so here it is. So this is our very first Sass file. So let's open it up. And here we go. So what we can do now, and what I will do, is to simply take all of this code from the style.css file and put it into our main file. So I select everything, cut it, and paste it here. And save it, of course. And that's it. So remember that with Sassy CSS, so with SCSS, it's way easier to convert original CSS code to Sass, because valid CSS is also valid SCSS. And so that's what we just did. So this style CSS, we don't need it anymore, because now we're going to start writing our code here in this file, at least for now. So let's put some Sass here so that we can actually try it out. And the best thing to start, I think, is just to putting some variables here. So let's just start with the colors again. So I want a color that's primary. So our primary color, and it's actually this green color here. So this one is our primary color, our primary green color. And they're the other ones. This one is just a lighter version and this one is just the darker version, okay? So color primary light is just this one here. And I'll color primary dark is just this one. Okay, and so here we have some variables. Now I can actually get rid of this comment here. Okay, so we have our three variables here. And now let's use the ones that we actually used already, which are these ones. This one and this one, we use them here in this linear gradient. So what we can do here is to actually replace this. Now what I'm about to do, this only works in Sass. So in regular CSS, we cannot put a hexadecimal color here in the RGBA function and then some opacity, and then it will translate it to the color. It doesn't work like that. But here in Sass, it does actually work. So I can just put here color primary light. So color primary light. And down here, I can put color primary dark. And you see it's a lot cooler to write Sass here in the real code editor than it was on the code pen, because we have all this cool autocomplete going on here. Okay, so we have our variables and we have used them here in this place. And so let's now move on and actually compile this. And how do we do that? So remember we installed our node Sass package, right? So how are we going to use it? We use it by writing an NPM script. And this is the place where we write our scripts. So right here in this package.json file, we not only have all of these definitions of the projects and our dependency, we also write scripts here. So we don't need this script here. This was just a predefined script that was here, okay? And so now we can write our own script. And I'm going to call it compile Sass. And then in here, we can write our command. And how does this command work? Well, we start with node Sass, which is the name of the package. Then we have to specify our Sass file, which is the input file, and then we specify which is the output file. so the compiled CSS file. So this is like writing node Sass right here in the terminal, then the input file and the output file, like I was just saying. But unfortunately that's not going to work. But what will work is to write the script here in this package.json file, and then in the terminal we will call that script with this name here. But I'm going to show you how in a second, okay? Just so that you know why we're actually writing this script. Okay, so again, now we need the input file, so our Sass file. And so we need to specify where this file is actually located. And where is it? Well, from the package.json file, which is where we are, we need to go into the Sass file, right? And then select the main.scss file. So Sass main.scss. So this is our input file. And now the output file, we want it to be actually this one called style.css. So it is in the CSS folder and called style.css. And it will then simply overwrite this file that we have here. But it doesn't matter because it's already empty anyway. And now with this code, we're ready to go and ready to try it out. Okay, are you ready? Let's do it. So back to the terminal, we now write NPM run and then the name of our script. Compile Sass. So let's try it out now. Okay, so it says rendering is complete, saving CSS file, wrote CSS to users Jonas and then style.css. So let's take a look. And bam, here it is. So the variables are not here, the ones that we wrote here in the top. And you see that our header with the gradient now, it's back to these colors that we had before. So Sass replaced the variable names that we put in our code, so which are these ones. It actually replaced them with our variable definitions that we had in the beginning. So everything is working just fine, exactly as expected. So great, that's great news. It means that everything's working fine and that we're good to go and good to use Sass now on our local computer. Congratulations to reach this point. This is really great, really cool, okay? And if we now go check out our page, so we can close this one. If we check this out and reload it, then everything works the same, it looks the same, it looks exactly as it was looking as we were still using our CSS code. And that makes a lot of sense because, of course, as I told you in the beginning, the website, the web page, it never even knows that what we're actually writing is Sass code because it only ever knows of the CSS code. Because as you see, what we have here is still called style.css. And so this final output of our main Sass file is of course what the browser uses to render the web page. And so we would actually never again have to look at this file and don't worry about it ever again, okay? Now this is only one of the many possible scripts that we could write here. There are so many packages on NPM. There are packages to automatically prefix our code in order to support all of the web browsers. There are packages to compress our code and so much more. Now one last thing that I want to do here before leaving you is to just make one very small change to this. Because imagine that we now keep adding code here to our Sass file. And actually let's do that. So for example, we can set a color gray dark, for example. And let's put it to 777 because we actually already used this color here more than once. And so let's simply replace it with this variable. So color gray dark. And I know that somewhere down here it's repeated. There's actually another color. And yeah, so here it is. So color gray dark. If we wanted now to go check out the page to see if everything worked, then we would of course first have to come here to the terminal, then compile our Sass code, and only then we would be ready to check out our page, right? But that's not really practical. And so what we can do, which is something that this node Sass package allows us to do, is to keep watching our main Sass file. So all we have to do is to add the W flag, so the watch option, because this W stands for watch. And if we now start this process again, it will keep watching for whatever we do in our code. So let's run this again. And remember, just hit the up arrow. So it's watching for changes. So it's only going to do something as soon as we change something in the file, okay? So let's just change something. Let's just put some space here, save it. Let's check it out. And here you go. So it detected a change, it compiled the code, and then wrote the CSS. So let's take a look now. And yeah, so the gray color that we had here is still the same. So if we did some other change here, let's say we want to add a color for white, color white. Okay, imagine at some point later we want to change the color white to a very light gray, for example, and then instead of going everywhere to change all these FFF codes, we would simply have to change it here, okay? So color white, and let me just copy it, because I've seen it multiple times down here. And let me see now. And so it's run into some errors, but that's not really a problem, because here in the end it wrote our CSS just fine, okay? This is probably because I have autosave enabled in my browser, and so I think that each time I type something it triggers a compilation of the Sass code. And so sometimes the code is not correct and then it will give us this error. But we should be fine, so let's just check if everything that was white is still white, and it is. And of course we can confirm it in the code. So our gray color is still here and our white color is still here. And so everything is working the same, right? Okay, and so now we have this in place where each time that we write some more Sass code, it automatically compiles and we can then check out our page or result. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that you cannot close this window here, this process, because otherwise it will stop. So if you want to use the terminal now, you can actually open a new tab. At least that's how it works on a Mac, just hit Command T. And so now you can write your commands in here, because as long as this one here is working, you cannot write anything new here in this console, in this terminal window, and so you have to open a new one. Now on Windows, I think you can just use another command prompt by again right-clicking the Start button and then choosing Command Prompt from there. That should open you a new window where you can also write the next commands. And if you want this process to stop, the Sass process, if you want to stop it to compile, then you just close this tab here and then it's gone. Alright, and so with this we're well on our way to set up a very nice development environment here for us. Now only one thing is left, and we're going to do that in the next lecture, which is to actually trigger an automatic reload each time that we change our page. So automatically reloading this page each time that we change something. So check out the next lecture to learn everything about that.